Hey everyone, I hope you guys are all doing really well. Today is Monday, so that's a good day for a live stream, right? It is, let's see, day 13 of NaNoWriMo. So if you are doing that, I hope you are not hitting mid-month slump. And if you are, then I just submitted my video about writer's fatigue to Go Indie Now. So that'll be on there this week in Indies. You can look for that Thursday or Friday, depending on what time it's posted and what time zone you're in. So I hope you're doing really well. I listed all of the links to the different things that I want to talk about tonight down below in the description box, so feel free to check them out. That's where I'm getting all my information, and it all really just, it's very interesting. We're going to talk about one thing with NaNoWriMo, since we're in NaNoWriMo month, and then we're going to head straight into the crime novel thing, which is really, it's very interesting. So let's get started with the NaNoWriMo one. This one is an article from Lifehacker, and it's called Trick Yourself into Writing Well by Telling Yourself to Write Badly. And what I wanted to mention about this was really more, I sort of wrote it off when I saw it, and I was like, well, of course. But actually, if this is your first NaNoWriMo, or if you're finding yourself struggling with actually putting the words on the paper because you just feel like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake or anything like that, I can totally relate to that. And so I wanted to just share this article with you to encourage you to just write whatever. And if you, one of the things that they say is write a bad draft, make that your goal, do it. You'll find it's a million times easier than to get started if you tell yourself, I'm just going to write this, a bad version of this, and then there's no pressure to make it good. And I think that that's a really good idea, because what I used to do, they're saying like you're going to turn off your inner critic. What I used to struggle with was being afraid to write the wrong thing, that I would write something that was like the wrong direction for my book, and that I like couldn't take it back, or that I couldn't make it work after that. Like that was the idea that would be in my head, and there was just no way that I could change it afterwards. I was very paranoid about that kind of thing. So once I really started thinking, it doesn't matter what I write, these are my notes, this is what it's meant to be. It's meant to be just writing stuff down, writing whatever ideas are there, whether or not they're any good. It really loosened me up, and I had to work at it. I had to like force myself to write stuff down that I really wasn't sure about, or even that I really knew was wrong, just to get myself out of that habit of being overly paranoid about my work. Hi, JD. Hi, Amber. So that's a really good way to look at it, and it made a really, yeah, JD is saying stating facts. Yeah, I'm sure that you do the same thing, JD. JD writes a ton. If you don't know him, JD Estrada has written a ton of novels and poetry. Some are in English, some are in Spanish, so you should definitely check him out. Look him up on Amazon, but also look him up on social media networks. He's a really friendly guy. So, he's someone who just writes and writes and writes, and he's a really good inspiration, and he's a good motivator too. Hey, Joshua. So definitely don't focus on it being any good. And one of the other tips I use for this is I used to worry that I would not choose the right word when I was writing something, or that I would like lose what I was trying to get across by choosing the wrong word. And so what I started doing with that is when I would like write a sentence and I would be paranoid about that, I would put in parentheses like the long version of what I was trying to say, like the descriptive long version, and like the words that don't quite hit the mark, but I was sort of leaning towards. And that actually helped me a lot, because I didn't have to worry about losing the gist of what I was writing. I could just write. So I hope that that tip helps you, especially if it's your first time, or if you also find yourself feeling like nervous about, writing something that isn't any good, or writing something that is going down the wrong path. Now let's head into this crime novel thing. This is very interesting. I came across an article that was published just yesterday, and it's on Daily Record. The article is titled "Bestselling Author Ian Rankin Predicts Death of the Crime Novel." And that blew my mind, so I had to read it, and I find that it is a very interesting concept. Basically what he's saying is, and like I said, the links are down below, so feel free to read it for yourself. Basically he's saying that there is so much, he's talking about, with terrorist attacks and mass shootings left and right and all kinds of, really negative, heavy things, people are yearning for kind and gentle books. And then I'm just scrolling down here because there's a couple of quotes that I want to read to you. He says, this is a quote, "The world seems so crazy and irrational that many novelists have difficulty trying to shape it into a coherent narrative. Fiction must be credible. The real world right now feels to me like the opposite of that. People crave normality and stories of kind people helping each other." He added, "I think this may happen, a move away from serial killers and bleak dystopian crime fiction towards something with a more comforting message." So I think that that is a really interesting thing. Uh-oh, kind and gentle, as Joshua says. Yeah, my writing isn't like that either. It's not kind or gentle. It's very dark. So I'm not about to change my style, but, I think it's a very interesting point. It may be true that maybe more people will be interested in something sort of more comforting, but at the same time, hey, Joe, I wanted to bring up, before we get like too deep into what Ian Rankin said, and being that he writes crime novels, and that's what he has made his living on, I find it even more interesting that he's like stating this and predicting it. At the same time, Agatha Christie is having a big revival right now. I mean, she has revival after revival after revival. And as we all know, Murder on the Orient Express is about to, it's about to release as another, if it hasn't released already, as a newer film. I was going to say motion picture because I watch old movies so much. So anyway, it's going to be a movie. It is a movie. And so I found this article also published yesterday, called "The Secret to Agatha Christie's Enduring Appeal. We Solve the Mystery." And some of it has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but there is an area that says, first of all, the reason I'm relating this to that is because her stories also have murder in them. And so I was trying to think, well, but Agatha Christie's having a big revival, so how true is this? And one of the things that the article says is that the author's cozy image, the author, Agatha Christie, cozy image is a misnomer. She writes about murder. These are murder mysteries. In an era when psychological thrillers fly off bookshelves, think of all those deliciously grim girl books by the likes of Gillian Flynn and her peers, today's readers are discovering that Agatha Christie started the form way back then. So the key there is to say today's readers are discovering that Christie started the form way back when. So we are having a revival of that. There is murder. There is, some amount of darkness. I don't know that it's quite a crime novel, and that's where I'm going to refer you to the next article. But on the one hand, I just want to also point out that if crime novels really are on the decline, which if they really are on the decline, I was looking for statistics so I could tell you guys for sure, and I was really surprised how difficult it was to find statistics on crime novel, like crime genre novels. And I was looking for the statistics to show what they've been doing in 2017 or even 2016. And I was really surprised how difficult that was to find. If you guys know a good place that I could find that kind of information, that would be really great, because that would also help me, sort of lean towards yes or no with this. It would help us determine whether this, the whole crime novel thing is true now and sort of watch it over time. But the other thing is, if the crime novel is really going into a decline, let me just say that there are always going to be people who are looking for that. First of all, it's a huge genre. It's been around, God, how long has it been around? Since probably, I have no idea, actually. A very, very long time, decades and decades, if not more. But there's always somebody looking for a genre. And one of the things I said in the Writer's Edge chat last week was that Westerns may not be in right now, but the people who read Westerns anybody who writes a Western can get a larger following, because those people who read them don't have too many authors to turn to. So if you're going to publish a lot of Westerns and there's nobody else publishing them, guess what? You're going to have success in that probably, or you'll have a better chance of having some kind of success there. So same thing for crime novels. Let's say they are going downhill. Well, there's always going to be someone looking for them. But I think the point is also that if we are in heavier times, it could be difficult to sell heavier books. Now, in my opinion, I always love heavier books. So I am not the person that is going to be turning to lighter books. However, I do understand that need to escape. So Joe from Going to Now is saying, you just have to look on the New York Times bestseller list. Right now, #1 is John Grisham. Go down the list a little bit further, you will see Anne Rule. Okay, that's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a really good way. Since I can't find statistics, that's a really good replacement. So people are still eating this stuff up. I really don't think that it's just going to sort of die. I don't think it's going to go the way of Westerns or anything like that. I just can't imagine it happening. It's a huge thing. There are a ton of movies and just there's just so much based on it, and it's its own thing. I don't think it's going to just decline. But what with the Agatha Christie movie coming out soon, I wanted to also go into what is the difference between these genres. If we're saying that things like Ian Rankin crime novels might be going downhill in popularity, but Agatha Christie murder mysteries are going uphill in popularity again, then what is the difference between them? I think that that's a good sort of definition to go by to figure out what exactly we're talking about, because they both are mystery to some degree. So what's the difference? Of course, in the description of the video, you can find a link. This is a Writer's Digest article that was published earlier this year, March 10th. So this is, of course, still valid. Genres don't change. Usually they don't change that fast, especially when we're talking about genres that have been around for years and years and years. So this one is the differences between a crime novel, mystery novel, and thriller novel. Now, I'm going to read you just a couple of things. Mystery novels, and this is more along the lines of what an Agatha Christie novel would be. The thematic emphasis, they're saying, is how can we come to know the truth? By definition, a mystery is simply something that defies our usual understanding of the world. They're saying a crime is committed, almost always a murder, and the action of the story is the solution of the crime, determining who did it and why, obtaining some form of justice. So I think justice there is really important. The best mystery stories often explore man's unique capacity for deceit, especially self-deceit, and demonstrates a humble respect for the limits of human understanding. This is usually considered the most cerebral and least violent of the suspense genres. Okay, so keep in mind the justice thing, because I think that's the most important aspect here. If we go down to, and then of course it has a list of mystery subgenres and some descriptions of those. If we go down a little bit further, it has the definition of crime. The thematic emphasis there is what is a just society. So it's instead of it being justice, so justice is going to be served, it's what is a just society in the first place. The story world of the novel is out of balance, somewhere between a state of nature where chaos prevails and those with money and/or guns wield power, and a police state where paranoia prevails and the state monopolizes power. The hero hopes in some way to rectify that imbalance. Other moral themes can include the challenge of decency, honor, and integrity in a corrupt world. Individual freedom versus law and order. Tension between ambition and obligations to others. So in this genre, the focus is on the contest of wills between the lawman hero and the outlaw opponent and their differing views of morality and the aspects of society they represent. The greatest crime stories deal with a moral accounting on the part of the hero for his entire life, or provide some new perspective on the tension between society and the individual. And I think that's where we can sort of pick up on why Ian Rankin is saying what he's saying. Crime novels are talking about injustice and the fact that society is not always just. And, if there's probably going to be a lot of anti-heroes and that kind of stuff. And let's see, there's going to be more violence. We're seeing stuff like that. If we scroll back up to the mystery novel, we're looking at it's not so much about that. We know that justice is obtaining some form of justice. It's going to be served. So it's a little bit less dark in that way. There's a murder triangle. Yeah, exactly. So, or no heroes at all. Yeah, in Cold Blood, for example, Joe says. Exactly. So I think that in this day and age where we hear a lot of our news is extremely negative, especially, I don't know in other countries necessarily, but I'm in the US. The news is negative. It has nothing to do with, just ignore what side of politics you're on for now. It's just that the news is very negative. There's a lot of crime. There's a lot of violence that's being reported. And to hear that much of it all the time and then read just more of it might be what Ian Rankin is trying to get at, and saying that like the idea of reading something where justice really may not be served and it may be super dark might be, since you're living it, a little bit more, a little less attractive than a mystery novel where justice is served. It's just a matter of how are we going to achieve that, which could be more satisfactory and more satisfying in this day and age. So I think that's kind of where he's coming from. And once I looked up like those two definitions, I sort of got it more. And then, of course, we have the definition of like cozy mysteries. And, you know, violence is rare. A bloody act resonates far more viscerally than it would in a more urban or disordered setting. The reader expectations are a unique and engaging protagonist. And, you know, a lot of the people they name are much more like they're brilliant, they're clever. And that's the focus. You know, it's not so much the grittiness as the brilliance maybe of the person solving the crime. So I understand now that I looked all of that up, and I sort of, I was very much like, how could this be possible, Ian Rankin, when Agatha Christie is really taking off, and those are murder-related, you know, mysteries. What is the difference? And then once I read that, I was like, okay, if we compare these two things, now I understand what you're saying about society today and why we, like, some people may be leaning more towards something light. I can also say from my own experience that I have noticed on my own, like, Facebook page, for example, if I post something serious, like about the time period that I write about, Victorian era, and I post facts and, you know, or a recipe from the time period or something like that, people are really not half as interested as if I post something light, if I post something funny, if I post something entertaining, if I post something visually beautiful. People are much more interested in that, and that might be because of the times that we're living in and being overloaded in the news with a lot of negativity. So that's, we will eventually overcome. Yeah, so I think that's where it's coming from. I think it's an interesting point. Again, just to wrap up, you know, I don't think the crime novel is ever going to die. I don't think dark fiction is ever going to die. I don't think dark fantasy is ever going to die. I think there is always going to be a big market for that, because that is like a whole, you just can't eliminate like people who like that dark feel. And I think that like when I read that dark stuff, I get really into it, and it has nothing to do, it's like totally separate from what I see in the world and in the news. I don't personally get overloaded by that stuff. I mean, I want to listen to the news for a little while, but I still want to get back to my book, you know? So it's like a whole other world, and I consider it totally different, but some people may consider it just a continuation of sadness or darkness or whatever. Dark fantasy better not be dying. I just started. I really don't think so. Dark chocolate is always the best. Hi, Lillian. Hi, Peter. Yeah, no, definitely. I really don't agree in that way. I could see where some readers might feel overwhelmed and might say like, okay, it's the holiday season, I'd like to read something lighter or something, but I cannot see these genres really dying. Yeah, Joshua Robertson is saying it might become like cult classic literature at minimum. Definitely. There are going to be people who are so into it, and that's what they're looking for. And I am one of those people, so I know for sure. And I know a lot of readers out there who are just like that, and they're really into it. Amber is saying, I love dark fantasy and urban fantasy. Yeah, it's getting stronger. I have to agree. And maybe it's specifically crime fiction, because that does include, like, it might be more difficult to read right now about maybe terrorist attacks since there are so many happening. Maybe it's more that than in dark fantasy, where you get to escape into a totally different world that's dark in different ways, and you get to just be in that world for a while and enjoy that different darkness that's less like what we live in or what we see on the news or anything like that. Like, maybe that's more what it is. Joshua Robertson says, me too, I don't want a happily ever after. Hashtag throw up in my mouth. Yeah, I'm not a fan of happily ever afters. If you haven't read my books, when you read my books, you'll find that out. Yeah, I'm excited that Joshua and Lillian are both writing their next books, and I'm really excited because they're both really, really good writers. So, oh man, yeah, Joshua, I liked Coraline. Me too. I like all Tim Burton stuff. It's all darker, and I'm always gonna love that stuff. That's never gonna fade for me. There is an appeal to, JD is saying, there is an appeal to darkness. Coraline is a messed up middle grade fantasy. Yeah, there is definitely an appeal to darkness and an appeal to fantastical darkness, I would even say, or darkness in a different time period or something like that. It's like it takes you out of where you are currently and puts you into something totally different that's very exciting and interesting. And you're looking for those descriptions of something different outside of what you're used to. Yeah, Amber saying, just about anything by Tim Burton is my favorite. Yeah. Except Willy Wonka and the Second Alice, says Joe. Yeah, Skin Cutter's Daughter. You know, I'm not going to say anything because with short stories, I don't like to talk too much about a short story. It's too easy to give stuff away. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say, guys. Anyway, come to the dark side. We have cookies. Yes, Peter. Always come to the dark side. It's the most interesting side. I actually like writing dark fiction the most. You're gonna be hard pressed to find anything light from me. I don't know. I'm not that into it. When I read literary fiction, when I read contemporary fiction, when I read fantasy, it had better be dark at least to some degree. That's how I feel. So, and it seems like a lot of other people in the chat feel exactly the same way. So, that's right. Yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to discuss that. I think it's a really interesting thing that a best-selling crime novel fiction writer said, and that is just, it shocked me. So I had to look further into it. I had to do some comparisons. I had to figure out what exactly he's talking about and why, you know, these two authors, Ian Rankin and Agatha Christie, who are both writing mystery, are, what is the difference that he's talking about there? So is anybody going to go see the new Murder on the Orient Express, by the way? I am undecided. It's been done like so many times that I'm not sure, but it's being, I mean, Kenneth Branagh's in it, you know, so like that's enough for me. I'm into it. Joshua is saying, my whole next series will be with the person from the Skin Cutter's Daughter. That's his upcoming short story. With her as an MC coming next year. Yeah. Lillian is saying she wants to. Lillian is saying she wants to. Peter says, I just saw it today, so good. Ooh. Joshua wants to too. Amber says, you have to promise me that if you get Johnny Depp to play in the movie version of one of your books, you'll let me come and see it. Yeah. If anybody gets Chris Pine in their own movie, please invite me to come see it. Yeah, he directs it too. Yeah, Joe is saying Kenneth Branagh directs it too. Anything Kenneth Branagh directs, I will see because I love him. I think he's a fantastic actor. He's such a good director. That's what's like making me torn about it. Sometimes when they have movies where there's like a huge cast of major stars, it's like a 50-50 chance. It's either going to be really good with all those stars or it's not that great, and they're using those stars to kind of make it better. At least that's been my experience. But it's Kenneth Branagh, you know, so it's just a win automatically. Henry V is my favorite film of all time. I think everybody here knew that, though. That's Joe saying that. Yeah, oh my God, Henry V with Kenneth Branagh is totally brilliant. You have to see it. It is so good. All right, guys. Well, for those of you who are going to see that movie, I hope that you like it. Leave a comment down below if you see it and what you guys think of it. I'm interested, and I still haven't decided if I'm going to see it. I don't know. But also leave your opinion down below about genres dying, the crime novel dying. You know, like I said, I don't think any genre ever dies completely. I think that's going to be so rare. So thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I'm glad that I got to do this live stream. I've been really enjoying doing live streams, and I think that it's a lot of fun to talk about like current events and stuff like that, publishing news and all that live, and to hear your opinions and your ideas. I think it's a lot better. I like it a lot better than making something ahead of time. I like seeing the discussion go by and hearing what you guys have to say and saying my thoughts as they come to me. Peter says, see it in IMAX 4D. Yeah, let's all do that. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. That was a lot of fun. And as I said, if you're watching this afterwards, leave your comments down below. I will be checking them to see what's going on, and I do like to comment back. So thank you so much for tuning in and spending time with me, and I will see you soon. I will see you on Thursday For This Week in Indies, my next NaNoWriMo advice is on writer's fatigue. So I hope my advice helps you, and I will see you guys soon.